Rome, the year 897. A man sits on a golden throne draped in the sacred robes of the Pope. A crowd has gathered to watch him answer for his crimes. They are still waiting, because the man on the throne has been dead for 7 months. What you are looking at is a real trial, with real lawyers, real charges, and one very real corpse. Historians call it the Cadaver Synod. I call it the single pettiest thing organized religion has ever done, and that is a stacked leaderboard. To understand how a rotting body ended up in a courtroom, you need to understand 9th century Rome, a place where the job of Pope had roughly the same life expectancy as a chocolate teapot. Popes were appointed, murdered, exiled, and replaced so quickly, the Vatican basically ran on a subscription model. Powerful families treated the Holy Throne like a board game piece, and everybody had a cousin who would look great in the big hat. Into this mess walks our victim, or one of them, a bishop named Formosus. And Formosus had a talent for 2 things: being very good at his job and making enemies who never, ever let things go. He was sharp, ambitious, and popular, which in Roman politics is basically a death sentence with extra steps. He crowned emperors, switched his loyalties when it suited him, and collected grudges like trading cards. In 891, against the odds and several furious rivals, Formosus became pope. He ran the show for 5 years, made a few more powerful people despise him, and then, in 896, did the most reasonable thing he would ever do. He died peacefully of a stroke. And that should have been the end of it. It should have been. But one of those grudges he collected had a name, a successor named Pope Stephen VI. Stephen took the throne shortly after. And Stephen had a problem. He hated Formosus with the kind of passion most people reserve for someone who is, still alive. A normal man, holding a grudge against a dead guy, says something passive-aggressive at dinner and moves on with his life. Stephen was not a normal man. Stephen had access to a shovel. So in early 897, Pope Stephen VI gave an order that no sane person should ever have to write down: dig him up. They went to the tomb of Formosus, exhumed his 7-month-old corpse, and then, this is the part that breaks my brain, they dressed it. Full papal vestments, the hat, the robes, the works. Then they carried the body into the basilica, sat it upright on a throne, and convened a formal church trial. The defendant, a dead man. The prosecutor, a living, furious pope. Because even Stephen understood a corpse cannot legally represent itself, he assigned a teenage deacon to crouch behind the throne and answer the questions in the dead man's voice. So somewhere in Rome, there was a kid whose entire job that day was to be the voice of a dead pope. The charges: perjury, coveting the papacy, and illegally transferring from one bishopric to another. A genuine technicality of church law that nobody on earth would care about if the accused were not, again, a skeleton in a costume. Stephen screamed accusations at the body. The teenager mumbled denials on its behalf. The corpse, to its credit, maintained its composure throughout, which is more than I can say for the guy who was actually alive. Shockingly, the dead man lost. Formosus was found guilty on all counts, and then the sentencing got creative. Every act Formosus had ever performed as pope was declared null and void. They stripped the sacred robes off the body. And then they cut off the 3 fingers of his right hand, the ones he had used to give blessings. A petty man's idea of poetry. What was left of Formosus was dumped in a grave for foreigners. Then Stephen apparently decided that was too dignified, had him dug up a second time, and threw the body into the Tiber River. At this point, Formosus had been buried more often than most people move house. Here is where the universe started taking notes. A monk supposedly pulled the body out of the river, and then the rumors began that the corpse was performing miracles. Nothing says you backed the wrong horse like the man you executed twice getting promoted to saint by public opinion. Rome turned on Stephen fast. Then, as if on cue, an earthquake collapsed the roof of the Lateran Basilica, the very building where the trial had been held. To a deeply superstitious city, that is not a coincidence. That is a review. Within months, Stephen VI was stripped of his power, thrown into prison, and strangled in his cell. Live by the pettiness, die by the pettiness. And you would think that would settle it. It did not. The next pope reversed the verdict and restored the honor of Formosus. The pope after reaffirmed it. Then a later pope, Sergius III, dug up the corpse a third time, retried it, found it guilty again, and beheaded it for good measure. Yes, the Catholic Church put the same dead man on trial twice. Formosus holds the undefeated record for most criminal trials attended while deceased. Eventually, the Church got embarrassed enough to ban the trial of dead people entirely, a rule that, again, somebody actually had to write into the rulebook because it apparently was not obvious. So the next time you think your workplace drama is bad, just remember, somewhere out there, a man's worst enemy waited until he died, dug him up, sued him, lost an argument to his corpse anyway, and still felt the need to do it all again. History is not just kings and dates. History is people being unbelievably petty with unlimited power. This was Graveyard Footnotes. The corpse rests its case.